Okay, today what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about one of the most basic parts of Adobe Illustrator and drawing with some of the drawing tools within Illustrator. The way the program works is based on a couple pretty basic principles. One is that it is a shape-oriented program, meaning that the way Illustrator creates images is to make shapes and then fill them with colors, patterns, or pictures. Um, that you may also have a border around it, otherwise known as the stroke. This doesn't mean you always have to have a border around every shape, nor does it mean you have to have every shape have a fill. It just means that um, objects are shapes that can have both a fill and a border, or one or the other. So the way we create those is with a couple of different drawing tools. We have a pen tool, we have a diagonal line tool, and we have a pencil tool. And then each of those have options that are located behind them that are for very special versions of each of those tools. We know that those options are there because there's a tiny, tiny little white triangle in the lower right-hand corner of those tools. Tools that don't have a little white triangle, like this one right here, that means it doesn't have any options for it. But the majority of tools on the main Illustrator toolbox do have options located behind them. So if you are going to start drawing, it's usually helpful if you make all of those options visible to you so you can go back and forth between one and the other more easily. To make those visible, you simply press on the tool and then drag all the way over to the far right hand side where you'll see, if you look closely, a dark gray vertical bar. So I'm dragging all the way over to there with my cursor and letting go at that point. That tears off the options that were located behind this main tool of the pen tool. So that little options window contains that main tool plus its options. Okay, so I now have that one out here, and it's much easier to access the variations for when I need them to have to open it up and find it each time. So I would do that first. Then I'm going to take this pen tool, and it creates two different types of lines depending upon how you click or how you click and drag. So if I simply click, move to a new location and click and click and click, and then I'm going to return to the place that I started and click. The kinds of lines that resulted between each of those four clicks are straight. Now, on the other hand, if I use the same tool, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, and return to the first spot right on top of it, click and drag. Now, instead of straight lines between each of those points, they are curved. I can turn these straight lines into curved lines, and I can also turn these curved lines into straight ones. I can also manipulate the direction, the length of each of those line segments, the portions that are between 2 points. So we need a few names, correct names here at this point. Uh, these points are called vector points, V-E-C-T-O-R, vector points. And if I click on one with not the black arrow, which is a selection tool, but the white arrow, which is a direct selection tool. So if I click on any one of these points, whether it's on this shape that's curvy or this one that is angular, if I click on the point, I will see these little blue lines, these thin blue lines with other little blue boxes on the end of them. And at this point, I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer so it's easier to see that. So with my white arrow, I've clicked on this point and I see these thin blue lines with other little blue dots on the end of them. Notice I don't see, or I do see two on this point, and I only see one here and I only see one there. And I don't see any down here. And the reason is that this is the point I've selected. And so the point that you select, you will see two vector um, handles that come off of it, and their correct name is Bezier, Bezier. It's a French word, Bezier handles that control the behavior of the line that comes into the point that's selected, and the other handle controls how the line behaves or how it moves, what direction it goes when it leaves that point. So let's see how that works. So I've selected this point. This handle here is partially controlling the line as it comes into it. So I can move that handle. I can swing it around or rotate it around. I can also stretch it further away from the point or move it closer to the point. And you can see how it affects the line by manipulating that Bezier handle. So on this side, I can do the same thing to adjust or affect this line. So I can pull that handle further away, move it closer, rotate it about the point, and all of those different things of moving the handle affect the line. Now, the other part with this is that actually, even though I've been saying this one handle controls this part of the line and this handle controls that line, the correct way to do it is that line should be controlled by a team. It should be controlled by two handles. It should be controlled by this handle partially and by this handle. So this handle from the next, if this is the point we're talking about, the next point on the line, its handle working in combination with the handle from the original point. Those are the two that you want to work together to control how this line works. You don't want to have this handle doing essentially nothing and trying to make this one do all the work. Now, in this simple example, it kind of the resulting line looks pretty darn similar to what I was doing just a second ago. You just want to develop the habit of controlling the direction of this line using both or two handles, not just one. So I would get the shape this way instead. Okay, so that's the basics of the point, the handles on the point controlling the line. Now we can also move the point. So if I move this point down here, I can do that. I can still, control the line in and out of it. But I can, the point is, or the thing I want to make important here, clear, is that you can move the point and you can move the handles by rotating them or lengthening or shortening them, and that's how you control the line. So let's go up here to this angular one. So I said we could turn this into a curved shape if we want, or we can have part of it curved and part of it straight. So to do that, I'm going to select this point. And the first easiest way to change it to a curve is, notice on an angular shape, I get this other little double circle. That double circle I can pull in, and the further I pull it in, then it creates a bigger arc or a bigger rounded corner. So that one, you can only pull in and out. When you go all the way to the right, in this case, it goes back to an angular corner. As I pull it away from the corner, the further I pull it, then the more of an arc I can get. And I believe that's as far as I can go. So there's a limit to how far away that you can pull it. So that's the first easiest way to change an angular corner into a curved one. Another way is I can select the point just like I did on that curvy shape, but notice there are no handles. So the idea is here, I need handles if I want to create curved lines. I don't need handles and shouldn't have handles if I want them to be straight lines. So I've got it selected. I'm going to go over here to those options I pulled out at the very beginning. And the one on the far right, it's called the anchor point tool. It's kind of a V tool. I tend to just call it the V tool. And I grab the V tool and click on that point where I want it to change to a curved one. And I just click and drag out. Now, if it tends to wrap around it like this one is, it just means that I have to unwind it like that. And that's all I do with that tool. I don't do anything else with it. Then I go back to the white arrow and I'm doing just exactly what I was doing on the other shape to affect it. Okay, so now what I have is a combination of some curved lines here and straight lines on the same shape. So I did that by converting the lines on the angular shape first. Let's go to this one where it's curved to begin with. And let's say that the line that I want to go from that point to that point, I don't want it to be curved. Instead, I want it to be straight. So to do that, I'm going to use my V tool. And now I am going to grab a handle with that tool and bring it back and essentially put it away. So I'm putting it back in the point that it came from. And I'm using this V tool rather than anything else because when I use that tool, it will not affect how the line comes into it from either side. Now I can see that there's some little parts sticking out here and here. And so with any of this stuff, it makes sense to zoom in as close as you can because I can see that, oh, I thought I put that handle away, but in fact I have not. So I need to put it all the way into that little white box for that other little thing to disappear. So let's zoom down to this one. See, it might be easier to zoom out and back in. I didn't, there we go. Okay, and I can see that that handle is very short, but if I put it all the way into that white box like that, I think, now we'll have a perfectly straight line from, oh, looks like I'm not quite there. There. Okay. Now we're going to have a straight line between that point and then and the next one, and then it's going to curve the rest, as much of the rest of the shape that I want. Okay, so that's the basics with the vector points with Bezier handles. You tear off the options of the pen tool first to get those options. I didn't talk about these two tools right now. This one will add a point, this one will delete a point on an existing path. But the basics are from those points and the handles that are around them, and that's how you control the shape. Okay?